It's a wonderful good morning to you, Grenada, Kaiku, PD, Martinique, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean. It's just about 8. And what's wrong with me? A minute gone past the hour of 9 o'clock in the morning. Welcome. It is Monday, it's the 24th day of the month of January, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Headlines for today, the 24th. Indeed, it's a pleasure being here with you. It is Monday morning, and we say thanks to you, our listeners on Classic 105.1, 105.9. Our viewers on GBN's television, Channel 7, Channel 11, on Channel 20. And those of you just chiming in via the World Wide Web at www.gbn.gd or via our Facebook page or YouTube channel. Indeed, it's a pleasure being here with you. And this morning, Mr. Barry Collymore, and he's the chairman of the Grenada Tourism Authority. And certainly want to say thank him for being part of the program. I'm Joseph Cadore, and indeed we say thanks for being part of the Classic family. Barry, good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Joseph. You realize you said beyond the headlines, right?
Did I say beyond the headlines? Maybe
this
Barry.
Is beyond the headlines.
Maybe
this is beyond the headlines. I'm leaving right now.
Maybe. And my apologies. It's to the point. To the point. Maybe what it probably means is that we need to have this conversation. We need to take it beyond the headlines. Maybe.
No.
Well, for the purpose of this conversation, indeed, it's a pleasure to have you here. And it has been a while. I'm surprised we haven't had you in quite a while.
I've been busy working, man.
Busy working, making sure you keep tabs, keep the lids, keep everything well within the tourism industry. Barry, the tourism industry, whenever it's an exciting industry, and certainly whenever we get an opportunity to talk about what's happening in the industry, the question is, where do we start? COVID-19 has catapulted, it has literally transformed our way of life. Tourism sector, no doubt, as you can well appreciate, and you sit in the middle of it as a chairman, has had its fair share of challenges. Let's put the last 2 years, and I'm asking you in the context because I think we can safely say that we're at a point where we are transitioning into and getting used to the new normal. What has happened to the sector over the last 2 years?
Thank you, Joseph. What has happened is something quite historic. For the first time, possibly in the modern era, in the history of the independent Caribbean, tourism has ground to a halt. And I mean that. Tourism had ground to a halt. We had no tourism. We had no arrivals. We had no planes. We had no ships. We had no yachts. There was no way for anyone to come to Grenada on a vacation because we were on a lockdown, a ground stop. Nothing was coming in. So it was quite an unprecedented time where you had no tourism, zero. And this is the first time it has happened ever in the history of our modern West Indian society. You know, people talk about the fragility of tourism, but I don't see it as fragile at all because this is unprecedented, once in a blue moon. Nothing like this has ever happened. Even when you had a hurricane, you were pretty much able to get the tourism plan up and going fairly quickly. But this is different. It will have not just short-term consequences, it will have medium and long-term consequences. And this is a very, very serious situation. So that's what has happened. But the thing that has happened that I want people to realize is that there are people who did not work for a year and a half, 2 years, no income, no salary, no business. My friends down at the Esplanade Terminal, the National Taxi Association, Cosmos, and the guys did not work for over a year. There are others in that category. And you think of it, Joseph, what if you were not able to have a salary for over a year? What would your life be like? They experienced that. But the guys at Port Louis had a long time before they they were Catay and the guys down there, they did not have an income because there were no yachts coming in. When you look at the vendors at the vendors market, and on some of the other vending points who depend on cruise ship tourism, they had a significantly reduced income for over a year.
Right.
When you look at the hotel and tourism workers, restaurant workers, who's, many of the hoteliers and the restaurants had to close, so the staff would have either no income or a significantly reduced income. And this is where a lot of people people don't realize, if you're not in it and if you're not feeling the pinch, then you don't realize what happened. And this has devastated families. It has caused significant impact for business owners, people who have restaurants and hotels and taxi businesses and vending businesses and so on. They are now only beginning to dig themselves out of a hole. But it was an extremely serious situation, one that we cannot even, unless you're in it, you don't understand it, and one that is certainly unprecedented, and something that we need to really, really commend everyone involved for staying focused. And I'm happy to report that although we had such a devastating time, we are now beginning to see a turnaround.
Do you get the sense, Barry, that for those on the outside, because you did say if you're not in it, you'll hardly probably get to appreciate, but do you think that many of us, and I'm saying us collectively, that we got consumed with the euphoria that came with the pandemic in terms of the vaccine and everything else, that we didn't get to realize how much of an impact, as you said, that the people that has been affected, our brothers, our sisters, it has touched our lives in so many ways that we've actually realized. We've grown up hearing the slogan, tourism is everybody's business. And here we are, touching every facet of our lives in one swoop of it.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at farming, for instance. A lot of my friends are involved in farming, and I've known them for being involved with hotel businesses, and many of them got a start with the hotel business, working with either myself or one of my colleagues, putting them on to businesses and, being able to sell direct to the hotels. And when you look at them, because everybody's saying, it's tourism, and some people are saying, you get back to farming. But the tourism sector is one of the biggest markets for farmers. So it's a serious thing. When you say it's everybody's business, it really is. And I think that some people realize, the people who were in it, but many people really didn't realize. And, you see it with the attitudes that people have. Really, when you look at the attitude that some people have to cruise ships, when they say, ban cruise ships, should be no cruise ships. What about the guys down at the Esplanade Mall? What about the vendors at Annandale? We ban cruise ships. What about the people with shops inside the Esplanade terminal who have rents to pay and families to feed? What about those people? Ban cruise ships. What about the guys who are my friends who just invested in Annandale and have it so nice now? They depend heavily on cruise tourism.
Right.
What about them? This thing touches everyone, and it is, if you are sitting down in an office somewhere and you are having, God has blessed you that you've had your same salary for the last 2 years, consider yourself extremely fortunate, because there are many people that is not the case. And that's what we're worried about, and that's the people who we're fighting for and working for every day. And it's really touching. And don't take it from me, Joseph. Take your cameras out to some of these people and hear from them how tough this thing is. It's extremely tough, extremely tough. And that is why we've got to fight every day and work every day to get these people's livelihoods back. And I'm happy that we've got, in December, we were just over 2/3 of December 2019. So We've still got a third to go, but our arrivals were two-thirds of what we were in 2019 in December. So we're on our way back, and we expect Omicron has spoiled January and so on, but we expect a very good March and beyond. But the main point, Joseph, is sometimes we're so fixated on numbers,
right,
that we forget the people, and the people are the most important ones involved, and and that's what's important. It's not just how many visitors are coming in. How does tourism impact people across Grenada? There are many people. In fact, the vast majority of people who have businesses in Grenada depend on tourism in one or the other, whether it is tourism as traditional tourism, hotels and thing, or St. George's University, which is a form of tourism,
right.
Because these, the closure of the St. George's University has had a significant impact as well. So I just want to, sorry to harp on about that a bit, but I feel really passionately about it, and I spend a lot of time with friends and people who I know, people who I'm just meeting, who are in this sector and who have been severely affected by the sector's closure. And I feel every time I speak to someone and they tell me a story, it motivates me and motivates the entire board and the entire staff at GTA who are doing a tremendous job to work even harder.
What are the two greatest learning points that you can take away as we start now to fashion the new tomorrow? Because as we keep saying, it's a new normal. But before we can start to build that new environment, we first have to learn from our experiences in the last 2 years. If you will, from the pandemic.
One of the things certainly that we've learned is that the importance of being nimble. You cannot decide that this is going to be the way forward and it's only going to be this and that's that. We've had to draw and redraw and go back to the drawing board many times during this pandemic when we made certain assumptions, and then you had to, based on those assumptions, you had to then redraw your plans. And when you think that, a friend of mine that always said to me, Barry, when you are absolutely, absolutely sure about something, that's when you should file it away, write it down, file it away, and start again, and then see if you are still sure about that. And then and that's something that we've had to do. One of the other things that we've learned on this in this pandemic is, and I hope everybody understands this, is the power of the unity. And I say that if, for instance, before hotel and tourism staff in general, workers did not get vaccinated, we would not be able to rebound in the ways that we are rebounding now. And they are model to hotel and tourism workers throughout the world, in that Grenada probably has one of the few countries in the world with an almost entirely tourism workforce that is vaccinated. And the disruptions that you've had with the different variants in other sectors of Grenada's economy, you haven't really had it in tourism. I think the SGU has not ever had to close. There's no hotel that has ever had to close. And that's because of vaccination, because either the staff were not getting sick or they were not getting as sick.
Right.
And they kept going. So the unity this was something that, if you're going to learn something, is that how committed tourism. You need to understand something, Joe. Tourism workers work very hard and they work very long hours, and it's not always conducive to families, and particularly my heart goes out to young people who have young families and they have to work long shifts and working in the night, coming home late. That can create significant stress on family and family life and that kind of thing. And if you're working at 8 to 4, you don't think about that. But you think about these shift workers who are working shifts. They're coming off at 9 and 10 o'clock. Just getting home, they starting again at midday or something like that. It's not a normal sleep pattern for one, and then it's not normal. Some people are seeing their kids or only getting time to interact with their kids on weekends or off days and that kind of thing.
Right.
But these are people with tremendous commitment, tremendous resolve, and a commitment to hospitality, and that is why we've got to do everything we can for hotel and tourism workers in general, because they are extremely committed people, and my hat goes off to them.
I'm happy that you said that, because very often, I'm not sure if probably those within the industry, they understand the commitment. And I know there's somebody saying, well, my job takes long hours as well. But I think it is particularly challenging when it comes to the tourism sector. You see folks to move from point A to point B, public holiday. There's never a day that you're off. But are you satisfied, Barry, as chairman of the GTA and the man who's literally in charge and was in that sense of keeping the industry together, that the financial remuneration for those that's in the sector that is on par with the sacrifice that's been made by those stakeholders on a day-to-day basis?
There's always room to do better. And one of the things that I've been very committed, and I'm happy that the government is taking these steps to be committed, is that we have to reduce the cost of doing business in the tourism sector so that businesses can become more profitable and so that people can then be able to reward their workers even better. The fact is that doing business in Grenada, because of the cost of energy and insurance, makes hotels not nearly as profitable as they should be. When you look at the impact of the cost of energy on a room rates in Grenada, it can be as high as 40 to 50%. You compare that with the rest of the Caribbean and Mexico, they are down in the teens and single digits. Mm-hmm. What that means is that there is tremendous price inelasticity, so people can't do discounting, and also and then therefore you have lower occupancy. But what it also means is that the cost of doing business is higher, so that your fixed costs are higher and your profit margin is lower, and therefore there is less to go around. And I'm really pleased that the government has started in its efforts with Grand Lake. This Grand Lake decision is a huge decision. Please don't underplay. It is one of the most fundamentally important decisions in the time, where we will hopefully, we've started to see it already, and my wish and prayer continues that we can see continued reduction in energy rates. And this will lead to, I believe, greater business expansion and greater profits for hotels, and therefore we can see better wages and so on for hotel workers. Hotel work, however, continues to be comparatively one of the higher in terms tourism work. Tends to be higher than some of the other sectors in the country. When you look it up in terms of not just salary, but the benefits that come along in terms of tips and service charge. People do, but in order for that to continue to rise, people need to have we need to drive occupancy up so that there's more money out there circulating. So reducing the cost of doing business for the tourism sector in general is one of the very important things that we need to do so that people can earn a better wage. And so this thing is many tentacles and it's connected at many different levels, and we need to understand the impact that these things will have, not just on businesses, but on the workers. The other thing is that we are through a private sector initiative that I am happy to be part of in terms of driving it, is hoping to upgrade skills of workers to make them more competitive, and giving them access to free education so that they are able to rise in the ranks, and so that we have less needs for work permits and foreign workers. But that's another conversation that we can have. and that too should help to help people to have better wages.
We're keeping the rest of the clock. 22 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. This is To The Point for today, the 24th day of the month of December of January. You see what's happening to me, Barry. That's when you've been away from work for a while. Getting back into the groove. And I'm happy that we did.
I think you're too happy.
I'm too happy. Maybe I'm too happy. But by the way of information, before we take the break, though, we did mention, tonight, listeners, on Beyond the Headlines, Reds Pereira and Tony Gray, they are on Beyond the Headlines. And Barry, guess what's the topic? West Indies cricket back then, now, and the way forward. And there's some who have lost faith, there are others they're holding strong. That conversation comes up tonight on Beyond the Headlines with the man Stevenson Wong as your guest, as the host, your guests, Reds Pereira and Tony Gray. We take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we continue the conversation with Chairman of the GTA, Barry Collymore. This is To The Point.
Season of Grooving Smooth and Live on GBN. Grooving Smooth and Live is a 1-hour performance gig every Thursday from 8 p.m. featuring performances from our local musicians and short interviews discussing all things musical. Every Thursday, a different musician and a different instrument will be featured, from the violin to the saxophone to the trumpet, guitar, and steel pan. Our local musicians playing, improvising, and educating us on all genres of music. Join GBN with host musicians Matthias and Shireen and a special guest every Thursday at 8 p.m. It's Grooving Smooth and Live on GBN.
G Squared, Gary and GT, covering all angles of your morning. Top-notch music, entertainment, live interaction.
I don't have the proper vocals. I don't know if you have the proper vocals.
Neither one of us are singers.
I don't have the proper vocals.
So let me put you on the spot. I want to hear you sing.
Happy birthday to you this morning.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to me.
Wow.
It's so special.
Current affairs updates and so much more. So start your mornings with G Squared on Good Morning Grenada. Weekdays at 6:35 a.m. on all GBN platforms. Good Morning Grenada, covering all angles of your morning.
Thank you. Welcome back to the program, To The Point, for today, the 24th day of the month of December. My guest this morning, Chairman of the GTA, Barry Collymore. By the way of information, as we discussed tourism, for those of you that's in the following what's happening in the cruise ship industry, well, Barry, we did talk about it. There is a cruise ship that's in port this morning, Aida Sol. It's part of the Aida Cruises. And keep in mind that while the cruise ship are in port, well, it's shipping in this case as part of efforts to limit the interaction between cruise ship passengers and locals, reminding you that the Esplanade side of the mall would be inaccessible to non-vaccinated patrons. But keep in mind, though, it's not a loss, because the Bruce Street side of the mall is fully open, so certainly you can continue to patronize the mall. The ship is expected to be in port up until 7 this evening. So God, those of you that's part of the sector, go out and see how much you can take advantage of that ship. The passenger capacity 2,686. Barry, the question was going to surround turning the corner. We have to. We've been knocked down, and the question is, what is the GTA's immediate plans for taking the sector to the next level? And while we are that, keep in mind, 25 minutes past the hour, you too can chime in, would be part of the conversation. The number in studio, 435-2041, or you can make your contributions via the WhatsApp page, or those of you that is on the Facebook platform. And indeed, we say thanks to everyone that is on already and being part of the conversation. Barry, how do we turn the corner?
Yeah, that's a good question. We already, I want to really commend the team at the GTA.
By the CEO, who've been doing a tremendous job. These guys are tremendously committed and hardworking and have been going beyond the call, of duty. And I think we're already getting there. We had an incredible December where we are just a third off of our 2019 numbers, so that we had, if you look at where we were compared to December 2019, we are 2/3 of the arrivals basically that we had in 2019, which is a huge accomplishment with all of the restrictions. And Grenada, unlike many other tourism destinations, continue to be a destination where the government places high emphasis on protecting lives. So our protocols have been some of the toughest. And if you know the business, tourists choose the path of least resistance, so that they will want to go to the place which has the easiest and most seamless protocols. So we suffered as a result of that, but there's nothing wrong with protecting lives. But we are already starting to turn the corner. We've had tremendous amount of publicity. We had the first marketplace fair. Instead of going to the World Travel Market, we had a marketplace fair here where we brought all the top travel people here to Grenada to experience it. It's tremendously successful. And then we have the cricket coming up, where we are doing a big relaunch of our tourism, and that will be huge. The bookings are tremendous, and people, many of the hotels as we speak are experiencing fairly good occupancy, even now in the middle of this Omicron storm. But I think that one of the biggest changes that we have to make is not necessarily in tourism in its sense. It's in our mindset about COVID. And let me just explain. I think that a lot of people are becoming very weary and tired, including myself, of this pandemic. And we've got to fight back. We've got to fight back hard. And we have to do things which will bring us back. One of the biggest things that we need to do is to change the way that we see COVID. COVID is going to be here. It's not going anywhere. It's not going. So we have to live with it. And I think that the idea that tourism, it is a myth to think that tourism brings COVID, because COVID is already here, and largely it's not hotel tourism. The spikes that we see in the Caribbean come during our festive seasons, Carnival and Christmas, when we are partying and there's nothing wrong with that, and that's a good thing. And you might get sick from COVID, but the partying helps to reduce the stress. So, and seeing family, that's good and that's important. And we want to make sure that people continue to enjoy themselves. But we've got to change the way we see COVID, and we've got to stop fearing it. We've got to get vaccinated, I think, and we've got to live our lives. And this thing about this 200 cases and there's 20, it's not my decision, and it's not going to be my decision, and I'm glad it's not my decision, but I would stop publishing all of these cases. If somebody's died or somebody's critically ill, I would perhaps report that. But I think when you just publish cases every day, how many people have the flu every day? You don't know. How many people have heart disease every day? You don't know. Right? How many people get cancer every day? And we have to, I think that the idea, everybody's on their phones around 8, 9 o'clock at night waiting for the ministry. Breaking news, 200 cases. That is causing a certain amount of paralysis in our societies, where people are worried and they're unduly worried because it's a 20% positivity rate. Well, it's not 20% of the country. It is 20% of the people who have either symptoms or who have been exposed, that they're recording.
Right.
So it's not 20%. You see, 20% of people in Grenada have Grenada has 20% positive. No, it doesn't. It's a sample of people who are either sick or who had contact.
But you know what's interesting, Barry? I'm listening to you, and I'm literally smiling because very often you've heard the argument that one of the challenges in dealing with this COVID pandemic is not necessarily the message, but the messengers and how the message has been disseminated. And the point that you highlight in it is actually one of factuality, that people they see numbers. But the question is, they are given numbers, and there's literally no interpretation to the numbers. So you see them.
I mean, if somebody dies, that's very serious. But as we've seen with the Omicron, it's quite mild, and people get over it. And the vaccination, I think, has helped to make the I'm no scientist, but that's my reading of it. And the scientists think that the vaccinations have helped to make this thing a little bit more mild. But I would stop publishing all these cases and all this kind of thing, and you never. That doesn't help, I don't think, and it just causes people to fear it more.
Just hold the thought there for me, Barry. There's a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're live. I think we've actually lost them. So you think that daily publication it does more in terms of it does more harm than good.
Yeah, I don't know how useful it is now. I might be wrong. I'm not a scientist, but that's just my own reading of it. That I don't think I think it's outlived its usefulness, and I think we've got to get on with our lives, and we have to get out there, and I think we got to, we may have to change the way in which we socialize in the future to prevent illness, because the scientists are saying that this is not the only virus on the horizon. There may be others. So we may need to do, and we have good weather here, we may need to get back to things that we used to do a lot more sport and community activities and things like that, and not closed up things in a room, which makes the virus spread more. But, I really feel we need to, we really need to stop fearing this thing, and we need to live our lives a bit more.
Live our lives, he says. There is a caller on the line, Barry.
To be healthy.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, sir. Gentlemen, Happy New Year. Both of you.
Yes, go ahead.
Barry and Mr. Joseph.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Now, I have a few points to discuss about tourism in any case. Now, tourism system in the world, manufacture and agriculture is the biggest investment in the world, biggest industry in the world. Tourism, agriculture, and manufacture. Can't go on with that. That's the biggest investment in the world. Now, tourism for all the years gone by in Grenada, we have sites and things in any case for the past years. But nothing upgrading to say make it modernized, and when tourists kind of feeling right now. When they come and say with something strange in the site and new things in the site. Just one way Grenada site for all the years is. All the years, the sites and things just one way. No new site opening, no upgrading. What about Grenada? Another plan for going on to modernize Grenada? All the sites and the photo and all different places and things, modernizing sites and things now.
So your concern, caller, is that more needs to be done to modernize some of the tourist attractions.
Yeah, but come back 20 years in Grenada.
Okay, just hold on.
Just one way they come back. When they come back, they see one.
So you said you had a few points. So the first one is with the modernization. What's the other point?
The other point? Grenada, Lake Antoine, all them, the Sulphur Point, the spring, boiling spring on them places. Upgrading place to top class. Okay, because I don't want us to exhaust it. So your concern is that we need to do a greater effort at modernization. Yeah, and sites, open new sites and all. Okay, so thank you. And Barry?
He's right. We need to do more. I think there's a lot that's been done already. When you look at he should take a trip up to Annandale Falls and see what they've done. Tremendous private sector entrepreneurs have done up there. Also, there are many tours that never existed before with ATVs and small boats and catamarans and and that type of thing that never existed before, underwater tours and that kind of thing with scuba diving. There are many things that never existed before that Grenada has now become really famous for, particularly our diving and our outdoor adventure. So he's right in the sense that we need to do more, but he's wrong in the sense that nothing has been done, because there's been tremendous level of entrepreneurship. I think he mentioned the granny tank. That government is actually, and I think it's wise policy of the government to put these things in private sector hands. And I think there's a RFP going out to the private sector for somebody to develop and take over granny tank, run it within certain parameters. But he's right, but he's not right.
And with you, we have another caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're alive.
Good morning to you all, gentlemen.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I heard the CEO of the Grenada Board of Tourism just mentioned about Annandale Fall, yeah? And I think that the idea is not 100% of it yet. Because we're talking about development here. Don't get me wrong. But why should someone take a bar, restaurant, and put right in the waterfall, almost on the edge of the waterfall? You think that's a good idea? Yes, we need to develop, but we need to do the right thing. I don't think this is a good idea to take a waterfall and put meters away or a few feet away from the waterfall. I don't think it's a good idea. I travel all the world and I see things, and I never see things like that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate your point.
There's no project or no development that everyone 100% agrees with. Mm-hmm. And I respect the caller's point, but I totally disagree with him. I think that one of the most famous waterfalls in the world, Niagara Falls, has restaurants, something right overlooking Niagara. And if he's been to Niagara, he would see that. I think it's a wonderful investment by young people, young entrepreneurs. And, it's easy to sit in your armchair and criticize things, but, I always commend people who actually get things done. So I have to commend the private sector group who did the Annandale. I think it's a wonderful development, but I respect the caller's opinion, but I can't agree with him.
We have another caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Yes, I know it's not an open line, but my concern is GBN is not putting the thing as before. Christmas gone. The feast of the Epiphany was the 6th of January. And they will be playing Christmas tunes this morning. Come on, man, do better than that. Do better than that.
Okay.
That's for you, Joseph.
I take it, Barry. What can I do? That has nothing to do with you.
Bro, you're playing Christmas tunes.
435-2041. That's the number on the inside. I want to say good morning to those of you that's on the social media platform. Alistair Woolwood and Ingrid Bourne. Good morning to you. And feel free, certainly, that you can share your comments via that platform as well. And remind you also that you can post your comments via WhatsApp and the other platforms that is available. Let me just go to this morning's success. A contributor on social media, Barry, they would like to see a few steps and handrails on both sides of the Annandale waterfall.
Joseph, this is something that I would like to challenge somebody, and if any private sector person is listening, I would like to challenge them take up as a project, and it could be something that they could take to the ministry, and it could actually be something that they could bring to the GTA, and we will help them with it. The idea of accessibility of sites is very important. There are people who are physically challenged who cannot access some of these sites. There are older people who cannot access some of these sites. And we need to have a situation where our sites are accessible to anyone, regardless of their age or physical condition. So if anyone is interested in doing that project, contact us at the GTA, and maybe we can guide you on how to do it. But I really believe that that's something that, and with people who are developing sites, they need to take that much more into consideration. It's a really, really valid point. That's one of the things that we have not done that well. We have not made our sites as accessible as they should be to physically challenged people. Good point. Really good point.
19 minutes on to the hour. There's a caller on the line. Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning to you and your panels day. First of all, I just want to agree with Mr. Collymore as relates to the restaurant on the edge of the waterfall. That is unique in its concept, and yes, when you travel overseas, you will see concepts similar to that. So I agree with him 100%. Secondly, I just want to find out from Mr. Collymore, the GT, and maybe the Ministry of Tourism, what is the challenge are they having in establishing botanical garden? Greener has been winning gold awards in the Chelsea Flower Show for so many years, but yet for all, when you come, you cannot see that in its natural environment. It's only conceptualized overseas when they go to those shows. I think it's a missed opportunity where we can find some ways or means to, have a botanical garden. There's enough land in Granitang and other places to do that, given the fact that we are award winners. And thirdly, I would like Mr. Collymore, along with the authorities, to take a look driving along the Lagoon Road, where it has become a boatyard, graveyard. There's so many bits and pieces of boats and shacks along the lagoon, which is such a pristine site. I know that green and corporate citizens are not sometimes, all the businesses on Lagoon Road, everybody depends on the government to do those things. But I think that is something that you have to look into. It's an eyesore. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller. Barry?
Yeah, thank you, caller. Take the last point first. Caller is absolutely right. That land is not government land or not GTA land. It belongs to a private investor business, and I think they need to take more of a proactive approach to it. It is. This is something. Up to yesterday, I had a message from Senator Humphrey, who is concerned about it as well, and. But something needs to be done there. I agree. It is becoming an eyesore, and I believe that people who are there have no legal right to be there either. And it can quickly revert back to where it was years ago, and it was something that the people who own the land need to do something about. Even if it is finding or accommodating the people there in an organized manner.
But do you get the sense, Barry, because you talked about possibly individuals partnering with the GTA in terms of the concern about the handrail at Annandale. Now you're making mention of the lagoon that is owned by a private investor. But do you get a sense that this probably there needs to be policies that is, and I guess the question is always compliance to the policies, that where as part of our development, there are policies that seeks to guide where the GTA can have a greater say, listen, this is what we want. So for instance, when it comes to development, the issue of the handrail and accessibility to these tourism attraction sites should be paramount. It should be part of that investor profile and not necessarily an afterthought.
I think that it's good to have policy, and policy certainly is useful and in terms of guiding the direction of things. But we also need a change in our mindset, and so that needed along with the policy. We need to realize that people with physical challenges need to be able to have the same right to enjoy themselves as anyone else. And it's easy to legislate things, but people need to obey the legislation as well. So that's that. In terms of the gentleman's point about the botanical gardens, this is a fantastic idea, and young farm people with farmlands in proximity to especially to the tourism belt or easy proximity, to think about that. I don't think government or the GTA should get into that. This should be a private initiative that somebody takes, and Grenada put a stick in the ground and it will grow into a flower. So, it's the most fertile soil, some of the most fertile soil in the world. Somebody needs to take this on as a project.
But certainly, Barry, the GTA, is the GTA willing to commit itself to listen? We're willing to work with you.
We will help. I have said before that I would like a business development unit set up in the GTA, and we're in the process of doing that, where we help people get into business, and the CEO is working hard, and we should launch that fairly soon. But in the interim, anybody that comes to us with an idea, we're willing to help them with research and development of ideas and so on. And I will get personally involved in helping people get it, because I really believe that we need to put more people into business and make more people successful. Like what we've done with the craft market, making a bubble and getting people down there, people doing a tremendous amount more business than before. So, I think that it's a private initiative, and the private sector should pick it up.
15 minutes on to the hour, we have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Collymore, with all due respect to you, sir, and even at my age now, I could remember tourism was one of the number one, education was one of the number one. Right. But the government was running it. Today, everything gone right back, right down to the ground. And you speaking about everything privatized. And then you're speaking like as fast as you speak, as while you're speaking, like you're speaking on two tongues, because you're saying yes to one, and then you're still saying no to the other one. So then is a right and wrong you're making there, Because the policy about it, everything is privatized, everything is privatized.
Sorry. I want to be able to.
Barry, just hold for me. Barry, just give me one moment. Caller, are you finished with your point?
I just want to know.
I want to be able to understand clearly what he's asking. So I didn't understand it. So I want him to. Because I want to be able to respond.
Running proper business, and now everything is privatized. And we're privatizing too. The people we privatize into is not native of the country. The native not the people that privatizing. Before it was what you call a normal thing, and it was attractive. Today everything is privatized and everything just going down to the ground. So I want to ask Mr. Collymore, why everything he's talking about is only privatized, and why you say something that is profitable that everybody could benefit from?
Okay, caller.
Thank you.
Okay, caller.
I didn't hear the question, Joseph.
435-2041. That is the number on the inside. It is to the point. Again, reminder you can post your comments via our WhatsApp page, or you can do the same via our Facebook portal, and even our YouTube page. Barry, I think the caller will seem to be at odds with you, that he's saying that he said you think you're making a contradiction in what you're saying. And one, we're saying yes, that you need to develop as a GTA, and then he's concerned that everything you're making mention that there needs to be privatization. But do you get a sense, though, and as we go forward, you talked about a change of attitude, Barry. Do you sort of get the sense that the private sector, that there need to be greater collaboration in the private sector and tourism, that certain business owners seem to think, tourism has nothing to do with me, and they're not even going to put their mark on it? Do you think there needs to be an effort to create that sort of greater bond between the two entities?
Okay, so which goes back to the point that I think the last caller was trying to make. Is an important point he was making. I'm not contradicting myself, caller. What it is that there are two different. The role of government is to put policy in place which enables the private sector to be successful. I don't think that it is the role of government to own things and to run businesses, and I don't think any government in the Caribbean has demonstrated that kind of competency where they are people who run businesses, except there are businesses in which have to be, emergency services and that kind of thing, which are of a national emergency and national importance, like a port or something like that, where that might be different. But I think what government has to do is to put effective policy in place and police that policy, and that policy should emanate from the people with guidance from government. It shouldn't be something that is with lots of good consultation, and then enforce it, and then that policy then will enable the private sector to thrive. Do I think that government should be running sites and all that? Absolutely not. I don't think that. And I think that we have to give people a chance to become more entrepreneurial and to be able to have their own businesses. So it's not double talk. It's just there's a role for government and there's a role for the private sector.
And that conversation of which you speak, do you get the sense that government is committed to it and understands the role that it needs to play and satisfy that role?
I think that government has done a good start into, when you look at what the government is doing in terms of privatization of some of these sites. When you look at Annandale, for instance, I keep bringing up Annandale, and when you look at like Mongazo and those places would not be as well run if they were being run by a ministry or the GTA as they are run now by private individuals. And I make no apology for saying that. But it's the government policy, which is one of privatization, which then allows entrepreneurs to come in. And these are not people from Timbuktu. These are Grenadians and Caribbean people coming in to develop these businesses. And I think it's important. And it's important that we go further to create more business linkages between tourism and the rest of the economy. Tourism is tourism is our greatest export. And what we are doing is we are exporting our brand to the world, and then people come here to experience it. And it is a different type of export, but it's an export. It's the greatest form of foreign exchange earning, and it is one of the most successful business models that we have in the Caribbean.
We have a caller on the line, 8 minutes on to the hour. Hello, good morning, caller.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful, thank you. You're live.
I want to say good morning to both you and Mr. Collymore for being on the program this morning. It's a very interesting program. But I do want to make a comment on a statement that was made by the chairman of the Tourism Authority with respect to the way the Ministry of Health is reporting the COVID activities. I am a little bit distressed by that statement for the simple reason that the first place, Grenada is a listening public. And with the things that we hear on the radio, we take it to heart. There is enough confusion going on in the country today with respect to COVID. And I think it was inappropriate, please pardon my language, but I don't have another way of expressing it, inappropriate for the chairman, Mr. Collymore, to make any remark whatsoever with respect to how the Ministry of Health or the COVID committee chooses to report the things or matters on the COVID. I think we should be a little bit more responsible with respect to that. The gentleman has his opinion, and I respect that. But as far as disseminating that information, his personal opinion, in a capacity that he is, what's the word I'm looking for, perhaps shouldn't be making that statement. That's what they all want to put it. I wish that he did not make that statement. I think it is inappropriate. That is my concern this morning, sir.
Okay, sir.
Very good morning to you.
Thank you, caller. But I did say that that was my personal opinion. So I did say that, and I think I have a right to my own personal opinion. So while I respect your opinion, that's my opinion.
435-2041, that's the number on the inside.
And I think we still live in a democratic society where people are free to express their opinions.
Barry, a concern being raised by a contributor regarding workers not being paid for their lunch hour, overtime, and low rates per hour. I'm not sure if you can. I'm not certain if this is I would probably want the caller to be a little bit more specific, whether or not this is a specific hotel they're referring to, or if that's the general state of the industry.
In general, people get paid for overtime in the tourism sector, so I'm not sure. I mean, I can't comment on that.
It's probably something which was... So, caller, if you want to be specific, if it's a general conversation, we probably be able to add more to it.
It's really nothing that the GTA can do about that.
We have a caller that's on the line and live. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I heard Mr. Collymore emphasizing the need for privatization to a great extent in the tourism industry. I want to ask him, what does he think about government undertaking to privatize the parliament so that we can see better results? Thank you.
Privatize the parliament?
435-204, and that's the number on the inside. Barry, we've almost exhausted our time here. And there's so much that we can possibly talk about. Just going to give you the next few minutes, though, just to summarize your position and make some final points as it relates to where to from here for the sector.
I think that one of the big challenges that we will have is to overcome the mindset of fear of COVID. COVID is a serious disease, but we have to fight it, and we have to stand up to it, and we have to get vaccinated, and we have to keep ourselves healthy, not just physically but mentally, and we have to be our brother's keepers. We have to ensure that the people around us are eating right and exercising, and the greatest warfare right now is going to be waged within our own bodies. So if you are not healthy and fit for that warfare, you may be on the losing end of that battle. The vaccine gives you certain protection, but I think that all of us need to realize that we have a responsibility to ourselves and to our families, and especially our children, to keep ourselves healthy, to exercise, to try to eat properly, to eat local as much as we can, and give ourselves a good chance of fighting COVID or whatever there is to come. I think that we have to look at the way that we socialize. The heavy emphasis on alcohol and things like that may not be the wisest choice. And every time you socialize doesn't mean that you have to drink. And we have become certainly a society that everything is centered around drinking, and it may not be the healthiest choice, and it may not put us in good shape for what, if any, viruses come in the future. So I'm concerned about that we need to face COVID, but we also need to face our state of our own health, the high growing incidence of non-communicable diseases. We need to get into a more preventive mode where we look after ourselves and our loved ones a bit better.
Thank you, Barry Collymore, the chairman of the Grenada Tourism Authority. Indeed, it was a pleasure being here with you, and I'm looking forward to having you at greater frequency on To The Point, Barry. And then maybe see how I get you next on Beyond the Headlines. Don't comment, don't. Folks, this is as far as I can take you. I want to say thanks to Mr. Collymore. And I need to remind you that this evening at 8 o'clock on To The Point, on Beyond the Headlines, Reds Pereira and Tony Gray, well, they put cricket and below under the microscope. Looking at cricket, West Indies cricket then, now. Yesterday, I heard two gentlemen were talking about the glory days of the battle between Brian Lara, and Shane Warne, and they were just on different ends of it, the spins and turns of the magical era of cricket. And that comes under the microscope this evening. Join Stevenson Worm, Reds Pereira, and Tony Gray on Beyond the Headlines. Barry, indeed, it was a pleasure. All the best to you. Thanks for accepting the invitation to be here.
Thank you for inviting me, and I wish you a good day and God's blessings. Thank you.
All the best to you. And to all our listeners, those wherever you are, and those of you that is on Facebook, indeed it was a pleasure being here with you, Andres and Saint Bernard Mitchell, the entire Benedict Rouge, everyone else, Julian Alexander, again, it was a pleasure being here with you on To The Point. Tomorrow, being Tuesday, the expectation is that we'll have representatives from the National Democratic Congress. On Tuesday, representatives from the government, and on Thursday, representative from the Royal Grenada Police Force. It's To The Point. All the best to you. JC loves you. Have a wonderful day.